Hi everybody, flag 18. You've got double here again, you've got Hans and me here. I just thought it'd be quite nice just to be able to feel like I'm not talking to myself, even though most of the time I will have my head down. You never know. It feels like I'm having a conversation really with everybody. So I hope you're all well. Can't believe we're on flag 18. So after last week's monumental stitching, I'd noticed that my scrap basket that I have was getting rather full, so I thought, right, we need a scrappy week, we need scraps. So I've had a look, all my flags are up here in front of me, at my colours, and it's quite funny actually, because I thought, oh, I haven't really done many greens. I'm going to do a green flag, even though now when I look at last week's flag it's got quite a bit of green on it. But anyway, I've pulled all this out now, so this is what I'm going to do. So we're going to keep it quite simple today. We're just going for scrappy edges, really, just really nice frayed edges, because last week's, oh, that's my printer just making funny noises, because last week's was a little bit crackers. I just thought we'd go a little bit simpler this week. So I've got a bit of a dyed blanket that I bought that I thought I would use as my background. So you need, because we're going to just attach strips of fabric to this, we just needed, oh, something sounds like it's coming out the printer, but that's a bit scary, seeing as though I'm not sure that anybody else in the house is doing stuff to print, so I apologise for that noise going on. Either that or I've got ghosties. Don't know what I was saying now. Dear. I was actually reading about this the other day, because it was talking about the menopause and all the things that they don't tell you, and apparently it's one of the things to do with the female brain, which actually explained quite a lot of stuff. That with all the hormones that we've got, we can actually, we could, before the menopause, you could carry more than one thing in your brain, which meant you were really good at multitasking. But apparently once you hit the menopause, and I think it's your estrogen levels have dropped, it means, I'm sorry about my printer, it means that you can't carry two bits of information in your brain. You can only focus on one thing. And it's like, God, if I'd have known that ages ago, that would have made so much more sense, because I'm really good, or I used to be really good at multitasking, and now I'm really, really not, and it was driving me up the wall. And you just think, why did nobody tell us that a superpower was going to disappear? Which is just a little bit annoying. Right, sorry, totally digress there. Right, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at frayed edges. So you're going to want to cut up little strips of fabric, fray your edges, and then I'm going to pop them on and stitch them. Now I'm going over the edges of my point because I'll trim it afterwards. So we're just going to do these one at a time. So I've got a machine cotton doubled up already, ready to go. So you can't multitask, but I can get things ready in advance. Right, I'm going to just pin that in place. I don't know, bet you didn't realise this week that you were going to get that little bit of a tip. My printer's making some ridiculous noises. Shh! Thank you. Ooh! Maybe shush! Anyway, right, here we go. So I'm just going to do a running stitch. Now if you're short on time this week, you could always set your sewing machine up, oh, I can't believe I said that word, and you could stitch them on and you could have this done in a jiffy. But we're not all about rushing, we're all about taking our time and enjoying the process of stitching. I've been quite looking forward to doing this. I'm doing a few of the videos, a few this week and the next couple of weeks, all today. So I've had a few days off, which was weird as well, because I've actually done no stitching, which is not like me at all. Normally I am stitching something, and I haven't been stitching anything. So it's felt a bit weird, but it's good sometimes just have a bit of a break. Right, when you get to the end of your row, tie it off on a knot, but don't trim your thread. You just want to tie it off in a knot, just so then it's not going to come undone. 1, 2. It's just tie it off in a knot. It's a bit of a cack-handed knot, but anyway, it is a knot. Okay, so there's number 1. Take the pin out. Then choose your next bit of fabric. So you might have some that have already got a little bit of fringing on them. That's kind of cute. So I'm going to do them just a little bit wider than my flag, just so that I can trim them at the end. And then just get your thread. Now what you want to do is part way up, as you're coming towards that, is just do a little tiny stab stitch, really tiny, so that you can hardly see it, if at all. And then when you get to the top of this strip, then again do your running stitch. So the stitching that we're doing won't be seen. You're going to keep covering it up with the next bit of fabric until we get to the very last one. So this is why I'm using machine thread, because it's a little bit easier to stitch with. But if you don't have any, just use whatever threads you have to hand. And make sure you come into the edge of your stitch, edge of your line. Right, again, just part way down here. Just need to do a tiny tab stitch. I'm doing this because I've got the point of my flag and I don't want it to fall, to sort of slip off, so I'm just catching those edges down. Then again, tie yourself a little knot and get your next piece, and so on and so forth. So just look at your colours. So I've just gone greens. I just thought, you know what, we're full on spring, and I look out of my room, all the trees have got their colours, the weather's getting a bit better, it's warming up a little bit, stuff's growing, so I thought green would be a nice colour to do. I'll take the pin out. So you can vary how far up and down you have your little strips. So it's a fairly straightforward one this week. And so I'm just coming up the edge. So actually no, even if you've got a straight one, you just want to do a couple of tiny, just a tiny stab stitch, just to fasten it down. Hold it in place. So we're just using a running stitch, nice and simple. I was thinking in my head that, oh, we'll do a simple one that's not going to take too long this week, and they don't take as long, but they actually take longer than what you think. I think that's because in your head you think it, well, I think it's going to be fairly straightforward, and then you get so engrossed in what you're doing you end up getting a little bit more carried away than you imagined. So part way down again, little stab stitch, you put it up and down practically where it was, and you won't really see it because you're going to cover it up anyway with another layer of fabric. I've got one here that's actually got, oh, now see, I quite like those dots. I might save those for the top. So some of them you'll get selvage edges that have already got frayed bits on, but you can still pull the warps and wefts. There we go. Ugh. It's kind of nice. I might leave a little bit more of that green showing. There's my pin. There it is. Ton ton ton. Oh gosh, I've gone and got that through there. There we go. Great way, these sorts of things, of using up lots of little bits and pieces, because I know from reading what people have written and stuff like that, we're not very good at getting rid of stuff, really. It's quite a dangerous hobby to have, is stitching. So I know we just did a massive clear out of my kids' clothes and bedrooms and stuff like this, and my youngest has definitely got my hoarding gene, so I was getting rid of a load of bedding and she nabbed all the bottom sheets before I could even think about, oh, they'd be good to keep, because she uses them to play around a bit with a bit of dressmaking, using them to make pattern templates. It's quite a clever bunny, really. There we go. There's the next one. Right, where are we going next? Ooh, a bit of checks. Some checks. Checks. So, if you've not got a frayed edge, you just create a frayed edge by pulling the threads out. Love a frayed edge. Or raggedy edges, as my friends call them. Go. Ooh. Let's go for quite a big one. So all the little threads that I'm pulling out, I'm popping them in my aught. So you need to keep an aught. So an aught basically is just a jar that has your leftovers in, so all your little bits of thread that you don't use, that you chop off and things like that, start saving them in a jar. There will be a flag coming up where we use them. I usually have a couple. I have a little mini one that I take with me when I'm out and about, and then I have my bigger one that I have on my desk. I know some people have a couple of different ones, so they have one aught that has in it all their tiny bits that they'd normally throw away, and then when they finish stitching something, if you've sort of got thread left on your needle but it's not worth, it's like it's not enough to stitch with but it's not enough to sort of just discard, they keep them in there just in case they need just like small length of thread. I've decided I am not doing that, because that will mean another jar on my desk, which means then my desk will be filling up with jars and it's already full of stuff. I don't need it full of anything else. Looks like a rah-rah skirt. I had a rah-rah skirt. Any of you's my sort of age had rah-rah skirts. There were lots of layers of fabric. So when I got, my mum made me my first rah-rah skirt. It was white and it had sort of a bit like splatters over it. And she decided, because she'd made it, because my mum loved dressmaking, she'd made me my rah-rah skirt, and had decided that because it had, I think it had about 4 layers of fabric on it that went round in ruffles, that I was going to have to learn how to iron it. So she was busy showing me how to iron, and me being me, I'm not very patient. Or I'm probably more patient now than I was then. I decided that I knew what I was doing, and I went to get the iron, and my mum put it on my hand. She burnt my hand here. That taught me a lesson. I do actually quite like ironing, but yeah, there's been a few instances in my life where I thought that I knew what I was doing, then very quickly learned that I didn't. Right, there we go. Quite like that, so I'm going to pop another one of those on there, I think. Or do I go for a lighter colour? It's going a bit lighter, it goes up, but then I need to, right, I might put, right, okay. I'm going to put another slither of that one in. just so then that green comes back into it. Probably not the best green actually, looking at them. I've got some that are nicer, but just needs a little bit more of that colour in there. Sort of got to a stage now where I wish my flag was actually bigger. I'm quite liking this. Right. Staying with you all day today. Not doing it, and here's one I made earlier because I was looking forward to sitting and stitching. It's quite, actually I didn't think it, I thought it'd be a bit weird having me on the screen in front of me, but actually it's quite nice. It feels like I'm actually talking to somebody. Well, I know I'm talking to everybody, but when you're sat in your own room talking to yourself, it is a bit weird. Just a little stab stitch. I haven't been tying my knots off. Oh, nuts. Knots and nuts. Oh dearie me. Yes, I've got this one that I really liked. Oh, that's pretty. I was stripping that because that's like a really open weave. Like a linen, I think. Don't know where I got that from. Must have been a piece of clothing or something. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, we should put that in down there now. Ooh. Ooh, I might still be able to... Oh. Right, I think I can sneak one in there as well. Right, need a bit more of that. Gonna sneak a slice in. Oh, that's better. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Right, put this one here. Open weaves are quite nice because, especially when they're printed like this, you still get cut and colour on the frayed bits, and because it's a little bit more see-through than your other fabrics, if you've got something that's a bit too intense, you pop that over the top and it just knocks it back really, really nicely. So I'm going to go back and try and sneak a layer in there. There are certain words that I think are just proper Yorkshire. Layer and layer. Like I was doing something the other day when we were talking about blanket bars, and bar is a proper Yorkshire word. I know it's what sheep say, but I just think it's such a cool word. I do talk a load of rubbish. I do apologise. Just chuntering on. Right, tie that one off. There we go. Right. Not going to try and risk it and think that I've got enough thread, because I've done that more than enough. You think, oh, it's be fine, I'll have enough thread. And then you end up trying to knot your fabric back on itself, and it just doesn't want to go. This wasn't the flag that I planned for today, but I usually, usually sit on an evening and plan them. And then when I sat down this morning, I just thought, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to do something different. Right, so there's my little bit. Oh no, I've pulled it all to pieces. Oh, nuts. Right, get another bit. Oh, that's got blue in it. Oh, Anne, you were just so heavy-handed then. That was just not necessary. Bit of green there. Sort of got away from being scared of cutting out of the middle of bits of fabric as well now. I'm getting braver. I think one of the things with it is I cut pieces up and pop them in my scrap basket, because then the scrap's all ready. So then I don't feel like, oh, I can't cut into it because it's a great big piece of fabric, or it's a beautiful fat quarter. It's like, no, it's in your scrap basket. If you don't use it, it's going to get thrown away. Right, pop that in there. And then do a sneaky running stitch underneath. Oh yes, I'm a bit happier with that. Now that green was just not the right shade of green. I don't know why on earth I pulled that out of my basket. But I did. But perhaps I did it because then I could do this. You never know. Was it meant to be? Was it an accident? Who knows? Right, tie that off. Okay, right, so I've got my top one now to do. So I'd found, which I've now probably lost, that selvage edge. Yeah. Love it when you get selvage edges that have the registration colours on them. Right, so I do need this one to be the width of my flag. I need to try and cut straight. Just pull those bits off. I think I'm going to turn that over the top like that. Pin. Then I'm going to go with a paler thread. So I was going to do initially the top bit with my green, but I've ended up doing it quite muted. So the green that I was using is a bit too bright. So with this one now I'm going to do a single strand. Screen's just gone off. I hadn't noticed. Come back on. There we go. Right, so what I'm going to do with this one then is little stab stitches. So stab stitch, like I've just said, is it's where you go up and down and you're practically going back down where you came up. So it's a bit like an invisible stitch. Now if you wanted to do a fancy stitch, do a fancy stitch. I had pulled a thread out that I was going to do. I might still use it. I was going to do a fancy stitch because I did think once I got to the top it might be a bit plain. So I'm just making sure that I'm catching that bit that's folded over. And then when I get to the end I can trim the sides, or you could fray your sides if you want to keep the edges frayed as well. I think I'm just going to keep my fraying just down the fronts. Right to the edge. Now then, do I want something on there? I think I want to stitch that down. I don't really want it flying around. I'll do just a few stabbing stitches. Just coming along there. Don't think I'm actually going to do anything. I think I just want it to be fabric this week. So you want to choose a colour. Like I say, have a look at your flags, see what sorts of colours you've been using. Is there a colour that you haven't used for a while? Is there a colour you've not done at all? Or do you just want to do your favourite colour? Totally up to you. I had planned on mine being totally different from all the ones that I'd done, because I thought I hadn't done green for a while, but actually when I looked at last week, it's more rusties. It's more oranges, but there is a little bit of green in it, but I think that's just because I'm influenced by nature and what's going on around. Right, where's my flag? There we go. Oh, trim my edges. So you could actually make this if you wanted a little bit smaller than your backing piece, if you wanted to see that colour, because it sort of create like a frame on your piece of work. But I've just used it as a backing. Oh, that's cute. Look at that, that's so cute. Right, so attaching it on, same as I've always done. Just a tiny bit of Pritt stick or glue stick. I tend to use glue sticks because they're not a wet glue, because you're working it onto cardboard. Sometimes if you use a wet glue, it sends your card a little bit doolally, and really all the glue is just to hold it in place. And then I stitch it on. I'm just going to lost my needle. There we go. So I'm going to double up my machine thread. And I just stitch the corner. So sometimes with some of them I've made the actual attaching quite decorative and actually made it part of the flag. Then other times it is just a case of just making sure that it is just stitched on. So it is easier if you do it and you just poke a hole from the front. So I'm just going to stitch it there, take it along to the other side and stitch that down. Look at that awesomeness. I've really enjoyed that. So there we go, flag 18. So don't forget to share, Instagram, Facebook, keep sharing all these flags. Loving to see what's going on, and I'll see you again next week. Mwah. Happy stitching.